So I'm going to try this out here, a bit of a vlog. I just showed my kids, my students, at the end of the year here, a great video from Dr. Rigsby, Lessons from a Third Grade Dropout. And it really made me reflect on my own life and things that I thought I could share. And I've been on a journey for multiple years of forgiving myself for things that happened in my past that weren't really my fault. And so I joke around with my students that Freud would have a field day with me. But I've come to the realization that we all have baggage that we go through. And I keep that in mind when I'm dealing with students who might be having an off day or giving me a hard time, or, we all have those days that teachers and students, and we need to understand and be human to each other. And so I'll kind of just share my thoughts, and I'll put the link for the video. It's about 10 minutes, and it's great to share with the students. And I thought I would share with them today. And so normally I'm a real kind of quiet person who doesn't share a lot of personal things as a teacher, but I found that the last few years that I have really has made an impact between my students and I. And of course, you still have to keep the line, but at any rate, I digress. So at the end of the video that I shared with the students, I said to them, I said, listen, I'm 43 years old, and I have zero regrets in my life, none. And I have friends who do, and I have family members who do, and that's part of life. But I never wanted to go through life. And I said to the kids, if I were to, drop dead tomorrow, hold the applause from a heart attack, I would go out of this world without a regret. Are there things that I would do differently if I could go back in time? Sure. But I've done all the things, and I continue to do the things. And at 43 years old, my life is not over, and I continue to reinvent myself and to do the things that I want to do. And a lot of that comes because of my wife, Joan, who is my best friend. So I said to the kids that I have no regrets. That when I was in high school, I was in the band, and I played trumpet and timpani. I was a varsity soccer player, and I went out for the girls, or the gymnastics team, boys and girls gymnastics team. And then I also went out as a senior. I walked out and I went out for the wrestling team. Knew nothing about it. Thought maybe it would, get me a girlfriend or something, or who knows. And I got my ass beat the whole year, and I kept coming back, and I kept learning. And I have a little junior varsity W letter from high school, and it's probably one of the things I'm most proud of, that I just kept going. And I have that inner drive. I get that from my father, who I have a lot of respect for him. My father was a cop, a Philadelphia cop, who saw himself as not being an educated man. He didn't go to college, but he knew more about history than anybody I've ever met. And we would go to Gettysburg, the battlefield, and he would give talks, and people would stop and listen to him, park rangers too. But he never had the self-confidence to go to school, to go back to school, or to work for the park service, or those kinds of things. He just didn't have that, and his father never believed in him. And my dad did better with me, but even with that, my father was never one to give me praise. I mean, I remember at a family get-together, I said, "Hey, Dad, I'm a history department chair now," and he said, "Uh-huh." Like that was the most amount that he would give. And so for me to go to college, that was all me, and I knew I was going to have to pay my way through college. When I was in high school, I delivered the Philadelphia Inquirer before school every day, about an hour and a half. It was like having my own business, and I'm thankful for that experience. And I knew going through college I was going to have to pay my way. And so I did get to go to college. I went to Beaver College, and in some ways I was the diversity there because I was the poor white kid. I used to have earrings in both ears. I had the baggy pants and the Jordans. I loved listening to NWA and Public Enemy, in part because it pissed my father off, as a cop, and 911 is a joke, and F the police, and people called me a wigger, that kind of stuff. But you had to be tough, and you had to do what you had to do in your neighborhood. And so I went to our Beaver College, and this was a place where people were writing $25,000 checks to pay for their tuition for the year. I had no concept of what that meant. And so I played on the soccer team there that helped with my tuition. I had to work in the library, and I was also an orientation leader. I took my education very seriously. I was paying for it. In my freshman year, I almost thought I was going to have to leave college because I was getting back research papers and things as a history major with all kinds of red ink on it from my professors. It's why I don't use red ink in my classroom. But Dr. Haywood really was a good mentor for me and really believed in me, and I stuck in there, and I taught myself how to write when I was in high school. And so I was doing really well. I had a great GPA, and then sophomore year, I got in a fight. And it was something I couldn't back down from. And I think there were some stereotypes about who I was and how I dressed and what I looked like. And so I left, and I went to Westchester University. And let's just say that my GPA at Westchester wasn't great. Met some great guys, and I got to meet Joan there, my wife. And so I try to say to my students, like, again, I don't regret leaving Beaver. I don't regret the things that happened, because it led me to meet the love of my life, and my best friend, and the first person in my life who believed in me, who said those things to me, and made me feel like I was worth something. Growing up was not great in a lot of cases. I was sexually abused, emotionally abused, some physical abuse, but not as much of that, and I probably would have preferred the physical abuse to the emotional abuse. My father wasn't around much because he worked so much, and so I had to deal with things at home, and it's why I connected with comic books. If you think about Bruce Wayne, whose parents were brutally murdered, and yet he's able to overcome that. Peter Parker loses his parents and his uncle. The X-Men, their parents more or less disown them as mutants, don't accept them for who they are, and these kids go off to college, Charles Xavier's school for the gifted, and they go off to save the world. And so that gave me a lot of hope. And so if I wasn't at practice, if I wasn't at work, if I wasn't at school, in high school, I was in my room reading comic books, and they probably literally saved me in a lot of ways. But yet you couldn't talk about reading comic books in my neighborhood, and at that age it would have gotten your ass beat being a comic book nerd. And so I kept that to myself, and it wasn't until much later in life that, I didn't talk about comic books really in college either. I was afraid of how people would view me. So I went with the hard Philly kid with the hip hop and that kind of stuff. And I still love those things, but comic books are obviously very much a part of my life. And like I said, and they saved me. So when I went to Westchester and things like that, so then when I left, I started working at a job and making good money. And I would go 6, 7, 8 months, wouldn't talk to my parents. And that's just kind of the life that I had. And so I kind of got lost, started making money, and I literally just stopped going to classes, just stopped. And it's not something that my parents would have known about. Like I said, we didn't talk. That was on me. And so I was making decent money, and then I got another job, and I went to work in a suit almost every day and was doing really well. And then Joan graduated. She became a teacher, and we fell in love, and we got engaged. And she asked me if that's what I really wanted to do with the rest of my life, and I said no. I've always wanted to be a teacher. My dad inspired me, with his stories about history, and I love history, and Dr. Haywood at Beaver and things like that. And so I didn't want to let her down, and so I quit my job. Never thought I could have done that. I thought, hey, I'm in my 20s. This is what I'm doing now. Quit my job, went to UPS, worked on the overnight shift, worked until 8:30 in the morning, loading trucks. Really hard work. Although UPS is a great company to work for, it was free health benefits. They gave us tuition money to go to school. It was great. But I would go to school at 9 o'clock in the morning, and the college kids would be in class saying, "Oh, I'm so tired," and I'm like, you kidding me? Like, I just got off of work and everything. So I went through and I graduated from Arcadia University, and that's the other person who saw something in me at Beaver College, the first school I'd went to. When I went back, it was now Arcadia, and I met with the dean, who knew me really well from the things I had done there as an orientation leader and stuff. And he said, "Oh, that's great. That you want to come back to school, and that's great." And he pulled up my transcript from this college. He's like, "Oh, you had a great GPA and everything." And then I handed him my Westchester transcripts and failures across the board. And I said, "Look, he goes, what happened?" And I explained to him. And he still believed in me, and took me into the school, and I got to fulfill my passion in life. And it was hard. And so, I go through life, and my son is in between two sisters who things come really kind of easily for them in terms of school. They win a lot of awards and things. And my son has meningitis, and I've talked about him a lot, and he's also part of the reason why I'm this comics evangelist guy. He has meningitis. He gets awful migraines. He's in speech therapy, physical therapy, and he looks on the outside like a nice, solid, healthy kid. He's going into 5th grade now. There are times when he needs to sleep 12, 13, 14 hours a night. He has in his IEP that he can be excused from homework. He's never missed a homework assignment. It takes him a lot longer to do it, but he'll do it. It takes him longer to process things sometimes. He gets frustrated and gets angry. And so in kindergarten, he was termed a reluctant reader in kindergarten by his teacher. And he was already frustrated with what his sisters were able to do, and he wasn't. And so there's one time I was in Carline, and I get a knock on the window, and the teacher had said, "Listen, Mr. Smythe, can you come in school?" And I was like, "Oh, shit." Like, I knew. So I parked the car, I went inside, and there's my son, eat shit and die look to the teachers. And, you don't corner a Smythe, for one thing, and you don't corner an Irish guy. And these teachers were all standing around in a circle around him, and I realized at that point, sorry, I'm trying not to get upset. My son in kindergarten he gave up on school. He was done in kindergarten. And I'd already been teaching for a long time. And, we fight with the kids because we love them and we want them to do well in high school and middle school and things. And we get frustrated, and we're emotionally involved with our students. And here I was seeing it, my son in kindergarten. But it was comic books that saved him. It helped him to gain his confidence. And we left that school. And he's at Upper Moreland now, and we love the school there. His teachers are so awesome and open-minded and willing to try different things. And we've been lucky with that. So my father, we lost him to Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, about 5 years ago. And my father was a hero to me. The things that he had done. And we knew what was going to happen. We did the research. We talked about what was going to happen. And we knew he was going to lose the ability to talk. And my dad and I never talked. We didn't connect on anything growing up. He didn't like sports. He didn't like my music. But we connected through history a bit. But again, on the theme of no regrets, I was going to be damned if my dad was going to die and us never having the chance to talk. And so in that sense, it sounds weird, but it was a gift in some ways, that it forced my dad and I to talk and to have those conversations, and for my dad to tell me that he was proud of me. And still a few words that he had said to me, but it means the world. And if he had died of a heart attack like his father did, that would have been a major regret in my life. And so I say that to my students: have those conversations. I get it. At your age, it's your job to be a pain in the ass to your parents, right? But don't lose sight of the big thing. Your friends that you're arguing with, you need to see the big picture. Everybody's going through stuff. And so then at 41 years old, again, I got another chance at life where Vicki from PBS, published an article for me about what I do with comic books in the classroom, because I had started using them in my classroom, and it was a passion of mine, and the students picked up on that. And I had a student who saw Miles Morales, an African-American Spider-Man, and his was a black kid who I didn't really connect with. And when I started talking about it, he was more impressed that Spider-Man looked like him than Barack Obama did. Like, president's black, so what? Spider-Man's black? And so the representation that we see in comics today is so awesome. And so now, as much as I suffer from depression, and it's my wife who believes in me, who has gotten me through some dark times, and these other people in life, like I found my people, and I could name names and I won't, but through social media and the comic people that I work with, and now I work with a comic book company and I'm a published author, and I travel the country giving professional development, and people who say thank you to me for sharing this journey means the world. And I'm 43 and I finally feel like I have worth. And then what I do matters, and I try to instill it to my kids that, hey, your life is never over. I know authors who didn't write anything until they were 50. I know Laurie Halse Anderson, who's written Speak and so many other great novels. She started later in life, and her inspiring story and her bravery to kind of tell a story and speak and to use our voices, that's inspired me too. and with my students as well. And I think that's so important to be open with our students. And for so many years, I just wasn't. And I've been having students come in today after talking to them to say thank you, that they wish I would have talked to them earlier in the year to connect in different ways. And so I'm going to do this more, and I'm going to do it earlier in the year, because our kids are so focused on grades now, and they have so much anxiety. And I told them, I said, listen, I put in for Wizard World the first time with my anxiety, trying to walk up on that stage in a room full of people to talk about what I do. I didn't think anybody cared, and it changed my life. My wife and my kids, and they travel with me, and they're so supportive, and my kids have told me they want to be in my classroom, and that means the world. And my wife is the most amazing teacher I've ever seen, and she doesn't want to share what she does. And I wish she would, and I wish other teachers would. It's not bragging. We need to share what we do to change the conversation in the world. And so on Friday, I'm going to Denver Comic-Con. I'm on 2 panels. And then on Sunday, on Father's Day, I'm on another 4 or 5 panels with some big authors who have inspired me. And it's quite the journey. And so at 43, I'm this whole new person. And so this summer, I want to start writing comics and doing more things. And that makes me even more excited and more dedicated to my classroom as I continue to use hip hop in my classroom. But I'm also really, by the book teacher too. And we do the research papers, and we do the hard work and the annotations and the close reading and things. And it's just, I just feel so lucky. And I've cried today, and maybe that's why I'm not now. And I'm going to upload this to YouTube, and I hope it helps people, because people have helped me so much, and I'm so grateful. And so maybe we can share more on YouTube. I don't know. Like I said, I've never really done this before, so hopefully it's worth something. But thank you for listening.